Hello, it's Look Movie Recaps here. Today I will be discussing an action, adventure, and thriller film called Plane from 2023. Enjoy and be aware of spoilers. The film starts with Captain Brodie Torrance at Singapore airport video calling his daughter, Daniela. He plans to get back to Honolulu in time for the New Year's holiday to be with her. Pilot Brodie arrives at Trailblazer Airlines Flight 119 to meet co-pilot Samuel Dele. After a brief introduction, another gentleman arrives. He briefs them about the flight. He tells them that they're going to fly into a storm, but since there were only 14 passengers, they have to follow the shortest route possible to save fuel. They were instructed to fly the same route regardless. Bonnie tells Brodie that there is a detective who wants to talk to him in the jetway. When Brodie arrives, the officer tells him that they are carrying Louis Gaspare, a murderer. He was a felon being extradited to Toronto. He had been charged with homicide 15 years prior. The officer promises to accompany them all the way to Tokyo. Although Brodie was uncomfortable with him, there was nothing he could do about it. The other flight attendants, Isabella and Maria, welcome the passengers along with Brodie. The next moment, while in the air, Brodie and Dele talk, with Brodie mentioning how his wife had passed years earlier. As they pass over the South China Sea, the plane encounters heavy turbulence when it passes through the storm. The storm gets worse, leading to the plane suffering damage. The avionics stopped working and the pilots tried establishing contact, but the radio was dead too. Brodie injures his head in the commotion when he goes to check on the passengers. A stewardess, Isabella, is killed, and Shellback also dies after being slammed around when the plane starts going down. Brodie and Dele have to manage control without comms and radar, and somehow they bring it to a safer balance. Brodie knew that they would not be able to make it to Manila without any kind of navigation in such adverse conditions. He realized that he would have to make a crash landing in the water itself, but just then he saw a dense forest nearby, so he took the risk and flew the plane there. He luckily saw a road, and somehow managed to land the plane there. Once everything settles, Brodie asks the passengers to get out of the plane. Dele asks him what they will do about the prisoner. He says he does not know anything about this killer because he is being extradited on a murder charge. When Bonnie says she saw him eyeing the officer's keys, he asks them to keep an eye on him and keep him separate from the other passengers. Brodie works with Dele and Bonnie to keep the passengers calm and to find a way to call for help. After some time, Brodie charts the area and realizes that the plane has landed in Jolo. Dele informs him that it is an isolated area of the Philippines that is controlled by a fortified radical militia group. He says they risk putting everyone in danger the longer they are there. Brodie knew that he would have to do something to let the authorities know their location, as without it, the chances of finding them were quite bleak. Brodie then thinks about doing something on his own. He comes to the passengers and tells them that last night they came there after flying over some kind of facility. He says he hopes that they have a phone or radio, and if he gets there and makes contact with anyone in the control tower, they could be rescued in hours. He asks them to be careful in that jungle. He surprises everyone when he says he will take Mr. Gaspar with him. He actually did not feel comfortable leaving such a hardened criminal with the passengers. After that, Brodie reluctantly takes off his handcuffs. Gaspar and Brodie left together, and he was surprised by the kind of confidence and trust Brodie had shown in him. Somewhere else in Jolo Island, a militant tells his chief, Datu Junmar, about a plane that has landed nearby. Junmar tells his guys to find the plane and hopes to gain from the passengers. While in New York City, at Trailblazer's headquarters, the board of directors is met by their crisis manager, Scarsdale. They try to locate the plane and passengers in the islands of the Philippines. On the other hand, Gaspar reveals to Brodie that he is former French Special Forces and was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, which is why he landed in prison. Before they could even find anything, Gaspar took the opportunity and vanished into thin air. Brodie had expected that, but he was still hoping that in such dire circumstances, Gaspar would show some integrity and assist him in figuring out how to get off the island. After some time, Brodie finds the facility and goes inside. He repairs a broken telephone and immediately calls the Trailblazers office. The executive who picks up his phone does not believe him, as they had gotten a lot of informational calls since the morning. Brodie couldn't believe it when she cut the call and told him that as long as he wouldn't tell his badge number, she wouldn't be able to help him. Now Brodie called his daughter, who is in Maui. She gets surprised to hear his father's voice. Tells her that he and the other passengers and flight crew are stranded somewhere in the Jolo Island cluster in the Sulu Sea. He asks her to jot down the details that he is giving, but before he could finish, a militant from the rebel Datu's group attacked him. But Brodie managed to overpower him, but he felt traumatized after killing another human being. The information Brodie had sent to his daughter reaches the Trailblazer headquarters in New York, where David Scarsdale orders a keyhole satellite, which is used for military reconnaissance. He orders them to locate the plane and deploy a team of operatives toward the location. Once they locate the plane, it will take the team 3 hours approximately to reach the area, after which they will parachute down and rescue the people. On the other hand, Gaspare comes back to help him with arms and ammunition and offers him a bottle of water. He had also taken down a couple of militants and grabbed their guns. They then discover a murder room with passports on the floor and blood on the walls. There is also a video camera where they find videos of hostages. Brody and Gaspare see that the rebels use the area to torture and videotape their victims for ransom money. The two rush back to the plane riding on their truck, but find that Junmar and his goons have already made it there. A Korean woman attempts to flee but they kill her. Her husband is then brutally decapitated when he cries for her. The rebels proceed to take everyone else hostage while Brody and Louis hide. Once the rebels leave, the two subdue a remaining rebel and learn that Junmar is taking everyone to a nearby village. Brody and Louis resolve to follow and rescue everyone. Now they head out to the village, and Junmar starts forcing the hostages to state their names and home countries for their ransom video. In the next scene, the military team arrives on the island but they find nobody near the plane, only the bodies of Shellback and the stewardess, along with a message from the captain. On the other hand, Brody and Gaspare reached the heavily guarded area, and they found the shelter where the passengers were being kept. They killed the guards and made their way to the bus which they had been brought earlier. Gaspare told Brody that even if he tried to distract Junmar and his people, it wouldn't be possible to take the entire bus out of that area. Brody realized that they didn't have a lot of options, and if they wanted to save the passengers, he would have to surrender. Brody knew that the separatists would not kill him, as they would want to use him to create leverage and extort huge amounts of money from his government. Gaspare couldn't help but admire his courage and what he was willing to do to save people he didn't even know. Brody surrendered himself, and Junmar and his men took him into their custody. Just as he was being taken inside, the military team shows up and begins to open fire on the rebels. They were able to rescue Brody and take the passengers back to the place where the flight had landed. It was a near escape, and Shellback told Brody that they needed to have some sort of plan of action, because the full rescue force wouldn't be arriving for another 24 hours. Brody tells everybody that he would try flying the plane because they cannot wait for the rescue forces. Everyone gets shocked at his proposal but they know that the separatists are going to hit back with full force. Everyone makes it back to the plane and boards it. The Trailblazers board argues about having Brody fly the plane since it is so damaged and could potentially kill everyone on board. Brody started repairing the plane, and he saw multiple convoys of separatists coming their way. Brody asks Shellback to hold them off as long as he can so that he can get some time to make the necessary repairs. Brody realizes that Gaspare cannot join them on the plane because he is a convict, and no matter where the plane lands, he will be tried again. So, Brody lets Gaspare escape, while he joins the military men as they fight the rebels. Brody was fine with it, and he was grateful for the kind of help Gaspare had provided. He knew that if things had gone differently, he and Gaspare would have been great friends. Gaspare also finds himself lucky when he finds the emergency money that Shellback had brought with him and escaped into the wild. With most of the rebels dead, Brody and Dele start the engine and make an effort to get the plane moving. Shellback and his team boarded just in time. As the flight is about to take off, Brody notices one of the militants ahead who is about to fire a rocket at the plane. Gaspare again comes to rescue as he shoots the militant in the head, and the rocket misses the plane. There were bullets being fired from all directions, but Brody took the leap of faith and successfully took off from the devastating Jolo Island. Junmar attempts to fire an RPG at the plane, but Brody lifts it high enough in the air that he kills Junmar by smashing into him with the plane's wheels. Brody then plans to land at a nearby airstrip in Saucy with the amount of fuel they have left. After a bit of turbulence, Brody can safely land, causing everyone at the headquarters to cheer. The passengers breathed a sigh of relief, and they had nothing but immense respect for their captain. Brody was thankful that he was still alive and could see his daughter. He sits to call his daughter and lets her know he is coming home. The movie ends. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like and comment for more recaps like this. Have a great day.